Oh. Cool. Kind of hear. Yeah. With some other no, I heard the
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started. Respect your time, and we'll try to get started here on time as well. I'm Scott Jesse. I am the Spokane County Planning Director. Our commissioners are all in Olympia for legislative meetings, or they would have been here themselves. Our board chair, Mary Cheney, did send a greeting for you. We'll get that started, and then we'll get busy.
Hello, I'm Mary Cheney, Chair of your 2025 Spokane County Board of Commissioners. Thank you for your time and participation in our community placemaking workshop today. When state legislators passed the Growth Management Act in 1990, they wanted us, governments and residents, to work together as we craft a new way forward to ensure a high quality of life in our neighborhoods. This meeting is the next step in that effort as we specifically talk about placemaking. Making places in which we want to live, work, and play in Spokane County for all of us today and for generations to come. The last time we gathered to discuss the county's future growth was 10 years ago. Much has changed since then, and we want to ask you for your thoughts and perspectives once again. Spokane County works best when we work together on the opportunities and challenges that lie ahead. Your presenters will share ways we can keep in touch to continue the dialogue after today's meeting. Again, thank you for being here. I appreciate your participation and time. I know it's going to be a great, productive session.
Thank you. As we get started, we'll introduce ourselves so you know who we are. As I said before, I'm Scott Chesney, and to my left is our county planning staff. Graham, say hi.
Hello, Graham Zickafish, assistant planner, Spokane County. I'm Michael Weir. I'm a planner and lived in Spokane for about 8 years. Or to you guys know plan.
I'm Joshua Warwick. I'm also planner here in Spokane County. We're just really excited to come here and join us and look at what the next future looks like for the county. So thank you, and excited to meet you all.
I'm Tate Andre. I just echo what everybody else said. Looking forward to seeing how this event goes.
I'm Bongo Thompson. I will echo Tate's echo.
And our professional consulting team is here with us to help facilitate, starting with Bob.
Bob Bakeford, partner at Akers Architecture. In my previous life, I was a planner, Bonner County out of Sandpoint.
Nancy Crozier, work with Bob at Akers Architecture and Urban Design. Had the pleasure of playing in Spokane, the city of Spokane a little bit, and this is the first time working with the county, and looking forward to learn more about the rest of this fine place.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Matt Covert. I'm a senior planner with Facet, formerly known as DCG Watershed or the Watershed Company. We are working with the county and we're leading the consultant team on this. I actually grew up in Spokane. So I was nice to come back here and help out the county and the communities, do some good planning. Look forward to digging in with you all.
Hi everyone, I'm Hillary Hahn. I'm also with Facet. I'm a planner, and I have been born and raised in Spokane, and I've lived through my whole life, so very much looking forward to this. I'm Tammy Camper. I'm a natural resource specialist environmental planner with Facet, and I'm also born here, and live here, and work servicing on the project. Hi everybody, I'm Meg. I think you know what? Consultant planner, quite a group. I'm with Cascade Consulting and partnering with these all, and then our firm is leading the department element addition to your plan, so we'll hear a little bit.
And last but not least, our communication guy in the back.
Great. I'm Tom McCarthy. I help plan the meeting and I help with those well course. Thanks for being here.
We brought Tom on because of his, well, I'm sure many of you recognize it, his wealth of experience in the local media market. As part of making sure that as we do our various stages and work on public participation, we've got experts who know how to do that and bring these together. We as planners are good at standing up in front of drawings and waving our arms and saying things about that, but Tom is the one that helps bring all of you together so that we get to hear what you were thinking. And I think with that, we'll get started. And forgive us our technology fumbles. This is our first session of doing this, so we may stumble a little bit going through here.
So many of you probably have copies of the agenda sitting on your table, and we've got about a 35-minute introduction where we're going to go over a little bit about the comprehensive plan, a little bit about the climate element, and about some placemaking, and then we'll get into some engagement activities. We got a series of 3 different activities that we're going to do because we really want to get your input on both what the context is now and what you want it to be in the future. And then we'll wrap up after about 2 hours. But while we're getting the screen up, wanted to find out a little bit about who you are and why you're here. But maybe first, raise your hand if you attended the online meeting on the 31st. We had our first meeting. So we had a couple of folks. Okay. But maybe what we could do is go around here and everybody take 30 seconds, just say who you are. And if you live here or work here, or, and why you came, what you're interested in. That would be great for us to know. So maybe we start with the Seattle Mariner hat gentleman here.
Hi, I'm Eric. I live in Spokane Valley, born and raised in Spokane. Went off to college and then moved back with my parents. That's me.
Thank you.
I'm Barry Larson, my wife Nancy Larson, and Spokane County, Medical Lake Road, and we just we're here to see what changes are in place. We like our way of life. We'd like to maintain that. Senior citizens, there's a lot of obstacles. And that's what we.
And I'm Nancy. And, I'm not a great planner, so I'm here to learn. What you got planned?
My name is Margot Buckles. I'm with the Cheney Co-Housing Group. We tried to do some work with the county to pull our parcel into the Cheney UGA. It's still outstanding. It was tabled with the idea that this would, the 2026 comprehensive plan work would get that land into the Cheney UGA, and so we're interested in moving that forward.
Gentleman here.
Craig Bossing, lifelong resident of Spokane County. Been on the West Plains since 1973. And I'm in the Palisades neighborhood, where we both live and have a small ranch as part of our income. And I'm here also as president of the board of Friends of Palisades, the neighborhood group that looks after neighborhood issues as well as trying to help the city with its Palisades Park. And I am here primarily, I guess, because I'm keenly interested. I want to see that this is a robust and exhaustive and first-rate project. And I'm in hopes that whatever is come up with is really reflective of such a project.
Thank you.
I'm much less important than these people. I'm Mary Beth Finley. I'm a resident of the Grandview Thorpe neighborhood and part of the neighborhood council executive team. We are immediately adjacent to West Hills, which is why I'm here, because the planning here will directly affect us. And I'm here really to gather information and take it back to my neighborhood council, because we're part of the, we also want to be part of the whole county planning as well. So I am here.
Thank you. We'll go like this, maybe.
I'm Sarah Warren. I'm a resident whose home has been flooding since the day it was built. It was built in 2003 due to subsurface conditions known as the high-risk drainage area. What's really interesting is you won't find any of these maps. The planning commission has chosen to omit them intentionally so that developers can start their mitigation costs. So I'm here to make sure that we exalt full measures as well, hold these people accountable. I'm actually in school right now on an EPP degree before going off to law school to keep individuals, well, in accordance with the law and not be clearly erroneous with some of their actions. So yeah, I'm excited to be here because I've been waiting over 4 years for the planning commission to have a flooding meeting with you. They told me what happened, but they continue to go through with the decision, knowing that meeting never occurred. Again, convenient for the developers and the county who makes money off of assessment. So thank you for having us here today.
Lisa Rodriguez, and I'm representing the city of. Morning, I'm Carol.
My name is Tom Mosher. I lived here since '68. I spent here 4 years working for the city of Spokane Planning Department, independent consulting, environmental consulting firm, and 23 years working for Spokane County Planning Department. It's nice to be on the other side of the table, so to speak. I'm interested in wildlife corridors and people corridors around the county, particularly to connect areas of natural resources that we all can enjoy. I spent a lot of time in the Phoenix area, and they have a 100+ mile loop corridor around their entire metropolitan area that connects all their recreational parks. That's
something that appeals to me. I've also been on various local trail planning committees and something was known as Olmsted 2.0 in the past. It was an effort to do some trail planning. So I'm interested in the whole county. I live in the South Hill area, but I'm interested in the whole county. And it's very good to be here and see what's going on.
My name's Eric Hensley and I'm her chauffeur, so. He's the one that's gonna be in the seat.
My name's Corinne Hensley, I was friends with the people who originally put the growth management act in, state law. I'm very good friends with Dave Berglund, and, anyway, after 20 years of growth management deals within the county I lived in, I said, I've had enough and retired in Spokane, which is where I grew up. So I'm a Lewis Clark high school graduate. I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Washington in environmental studies. I focused my senior planning on fires in Yellowstone. So I did a lot of work on forest fires. I also have a master's degree in policy. I worked on public policy. So I'm here maybe to give some comments that might be useful.
Julia McHugh, Palisades neighborhood, which is one of 14 recognized neighborhoods on the West Plains, and I think there may only be 2 neighborhoods here at the table. I am here because I live on a PFAS contaminated well, as do 57% of the private wells that exist out here. There are over 4,000 wells. Sole source domestic livestock garden wells that are basically put out of commission due to the contamination. I am here to bring you some information that the Spokane County generated. It's an aquifer susceptibility map. I don't see anywhere here, but we're here to talk about aquifer susceptibility because it's our aquifer, which is separate and distinct from the Spokane Valley Rapid and Prairie Aquifer, which is the knows extremely well. And we're here to advocate for first ever acknowledgement of this discrete separate aquifer system and to see to it that there are groundwater protections put in place for if there are 4,000 wells, let's just multiply that by 4. There's at least 16,000 people reliant on sole source water. We have no other options, despite the promises. And there are many, many, many things that need to be done in order to protect this aquifer and these residents, taxpayers, and voters. So I'm looking forward to this process and the very intentional inclusion of groundwater and aquifer protection that is very badly needed out here and has been ignored many, many years. In fact, we've known about PFAS contamination since 2017. So we're 8 years into this long haul, and we want to see some action and some written words and some upholding of regulations. We have witnessed 2 mines and 1 landfill approved in the Airway Heights Paleo Channel, which is not even on any of those maps or on the county map. And we need to protect the system. It's a unique geology and heads up, folks.
Okay, I've got a couple more people.
My name's John Hancock. Mike, Craig, and Julia and Terry, clean water on the Plains is my issue. I'm the president of an organization called the West Plains Water Coalition. Represents about 300 neighbors with polluted well. It's a community-based nonprofit education and advocacy organization. And part of the issue for me is how to preserve the place we have, while at the same time we're imagining the place of the future. I'm advocating for what we have.
Oh, you look at it. And when I just lived down the road. I did it down the corner. One of your Spokane County planning issues.
I'm Corey Clark. I work for Washington.
Great. Good. Thank you, everyone. There is, as many of you, have individual or important issues. All of those are part of our work over these past few years, but also moving forward. Today's session is a little bit focused on what we call placemaking, and we're going to get to that. But what I want you to know from the beginning is we have a totally new planning department in Spokane County from 2000. I joined in roughly January of 2021, and we have been working behind the scenes on getting ready for this comprehensive plan update for the past 4 years. And so we're now getting some things out in public. We have that map. We have others like that in our studio back at the shop. We're very much aware of environmental issues. And part of this session, while it talks about placemaking, which in one sense sounds like it's just urban design, it's not. It's really placemaking and resiliency. Meg's team from Cascadia is working on that climate and resiliency element, which is a separate part of it. But our effort is to bring those things together. And that resiliency part of placemaking includes things like stormwater management. It includes wellhead protection. It includes aquifer recognition. Those are things that will come into the goals and policies of the plan. And importantly for Spokane County, and we're actually working with the legislature to give us a 6-month extension in our deadline to do this. Our intention is to rewrite the development regs of Spokane County for development. That's the zoning rules, the zoning code, the subdivision code, critical areas, shoreline management program are all going to be updated, and the zoning code in particular will be a fairly massive update where it gives better guidance on these mix of uses. And so it's not just you're meeting subdivision requirements for a residential project that is a plat of 60 lots and that's all it is. It's no, how does it fit in? What are the environmental impacts? What are the capital facilities, water, sewer, stormwater, all those pieces coming into that from the very beginning rather than being reacted to at the end, which has been a challenge for Spokane County in the past. And so there's a new philosophy going forward. Our board has been briefed on that. We feel we have their support in how we're pushing this part forward. And if those of you who somebody said they were a land use nerd in there, we will be briefing our board quarterly as these sessions go on. The first one of those is going to be Monday, February 24th. Yeah.
What's your new philosophy?
Well, it's in this placemaking approach rather than individual subdivision. I guess the summary for today is we want to learn how to build neighborhoods instead of just permitting subdivisions. So with that, essentially, yeah, when we say why are we here, kind of gone through that in the comprehensive plan. The purposes of the plan, part of it, of course, is it's required. As we've said, Commissioner Cheney said we last really looked at this seriously 10 years ago. Spokane County's comprehensive plan really was written in 2001 as the first major response to the Growth Management Act in the 1990s. It has not substantially changed since then. Our world has changed dramatically in 25 years, and so that's why we're looking at this update as almost a clean sheet of paper rather than let's just go through and update the chapters.
It was just recently invalidated the last time you guys tried to do this. So, I mean, there's clearly a history of failure, invalid, so.
Fortunately, the failures occurred before we started this process. We're starting with a fresh attitude and a positive sense of we're going to make this a better plan going forward. However, that said, there's really a couple of fundamental issues here. One is the plan will help create a vision. Something, again, building places rather than just permitting land. That is where all of you come in and your counterparts at various parts of the county. What we're doing today is the first step of doing that. And then it's also about coordinating growth. Often in the past, and Spokane County has been guilty of this, many counties have actually, Land planning was done without much of a connection to things like capital facilities. Is there water and sewer available? Do we have the capacity to handle stormwater? Are the roads sufficient for the impact of what's coming in? Those are things that are being wrapped together into this plan that were all disparate parts of Spokane County in the past. And so in addition to groups like you, we're holding similar meetings back at the shop with my fellow department heads and directors to say, I know you don't think much of the comprehensive plan in the past, but you're actually a part of it, and here's why. And so all of those coordinating efforts are part of this planning process. What do we want to come out of this? We talked a little bit about having a vision. Our plan now is a series of goals and policies related to land use, economic development, transportation. There's really not much of a unifying vision in there. That's kind of the overarching chapter we want to create while we then go through the statutory required parts of this. And then, as we alluded to, we will give ourselves direction on rewriting our development regs. The comprehensive plan provides goals and policy direction for investment. The development regs are the law. Those are the rules by which development has to happen. And those, desperately need to be revised. So here's kind of the 101, how we go through planning to get there. And you can see this, and by the way, yes, go ahead.
I just like to point out that your previous slide, the desired outcomes.
Yes.
I really think that we should see in writing a dedicated intention to protect existing resources. You're aimed at economic development. You're telling us that we already know time is money, and you're looking at investments of all kinds. But I want to know, do you intend to incorporate protection of natural resources?
Yes, we do.
Groundwater, wetlands, stormwater, etc. We have big problems with that out here, and you get to mention it, and we're already creeping into what you want.
And I want to be, I guess, clear. We're not going to talk about the entire breadth of the comprehensive plan today. We're talking about one part of it, which is how we describe and create and rebuild and infill good places. What you're talking about is absolutely a commitment from us to respect and preserve those resources.
Please put it in writing.
That's fine, and we will in a broader sense. Like I said, today's agenda is not into that level of detail, but we appreciate it.
They already are required by law for people in 4321C and the FCC or chapter 1.2, which is actually more common than our comprehensive plan.
We're going to the weeds eventually.
We will.
Getting into the weeds eventually.
We will. Today is not that day. And I'd ask if you, when you have those comments, be sure you write them down. If you haven't, make sure we've got them with our staff, so we have them as we go forward. So where are we going from here? Today, I'm going to have Meg talk to you a little bit about the climate and resiliency side of this, and then we'll get into the meat of our presentation and our discussion.
Yeah, hi, everybody. In the go around, you all raised a lot of resiliency related issues and climate related issues. And so I hear a lot of interest in the room. And yes, my name is Megan. I work with Cascadia Consulting, and we are supporting the rest of the team here in Cleveland County in developing Spokane County's first climate element as part of its comprehensive plan. Many of you mentioned reasons why you probably care about issues of resiliency to a changing climate. And in addition to your interest, it's also a state requirement. So, legally required. So in 2023, HB 1181 established under the GMA that all fully planning counties and towns have to add a climate element. That includes 2 sub-elements, one about enhancing your resiliency to a changing climate, and the other one is reducing greenhouse gas emissions reduction. So our commitment as Cascadia, as we help the county develop its climate element, is that it will comply with legal requirements, first and foremost, that will help your county be more resilient to, and I'll talk about a little bit about expected changes in the future. It's not good enough to read that, so I look back here. It will be indeed informed by data, looking at climate projections. I heard talk about aquifer flooding. We'll be looking at data and also integrating lots of engagement. So workshops like this, the issues you all raise will be things we consider as we develop that. A big goal too, and that's why we're here today at this kickoff to placemaking, is that our attention to climate is not some like standalone thing over here in the corner, but that it's integrated into the future of Spokane County planning, kind of at all elements, including the placemaking activity. And that it's supported. Now, I don't want to be naive and Pollyanna. There's a diverse range of folks in Spokane County. So, this isn't going to be easy to get to one comprehensive vision supported by all, but through lots of robust engagement through the leadership, county staff, and through lots of other engaged stakeholders, we'll hopefully get to something that's supported by community, county staff, and that is passed and established by decision makers. And then the final goal is that it's not just a plan, but that it's actually a route to implementation. So that in 20 years, Spokane County is indeed more resilient in the face of the changing climate. The photo on the right there, by the way, is a screenshot of the cover page of guidance established by the Department of Commerce at the states. That's a state agency that puts out guidance around planning. And they have a very long, like multi-hundred-page climate element planning guidance and a website with lots of information on it. You're welcome to go look at their resources. And I promise you, Cascadia Consulting, my firm, pays a lot of attention to what Commerce puts out. We know the ins and outs of that guidance. We attend all the meetings. We're leading a lot of climate elements around the state. So we promise legal compliance and using the best resources. So what are the climate resiliency issues? You probably know them. I heard a lot in the room. There's a handout on the back table where one side of it talks about some of the key climate change impacts that Spokane County will be facing. So here, there's just 4 up here, and I'm guessing they are no surprise to anybody in the room. So what these columns show is each of them is a different impact or issue around climate and resiliency. And the big font below talks about like what would the placemaking effort, like a positive strategy be, and then in italics is the issue. So I'll just quick walk through them. We're expecting rising temperatures in the future. Spokane County has already been experiencing extreme heat, like the heat dome in 2021. And in the future, you'll be seeing annual average temperatures have already increased 2 degrees in the past 100 years or so, and they will increase another. Extreme heat events will increase to 24 days above 100 degrees Fahrenheit at the end of the century, under current business as usual projections. So hopefully we'll have a community able to withstand that in the future. Wildfire smoke, placemaking efforts and planning efforts that we have enhanced resilience to increase wildfire activity. In the future, we are expecting more high fire danger days and extreme fire danger days and just greater risk. Again, no surprise to folks in the room. I know some of you have lived through recent wildfires and extended smoke events, and unfortunately, likely more of that in the future. It'll be important that we build communities that can withstand that. In the blue column there, it mentions precipitation, snowpack, and drought. There's a lot packed in there, but somebody brought up floodplain and aquifer and wetland issues. Those are certainly all impacted by a changing precipitation situation. So, the goal is that we have a Spokane County community that's able to withstand declining summer precipitation and reduce snowpack and just changes in general in precipitation. So we know Spokane County will see greater winter rain and flooding and just high precipitation events and less precipitation in the summer. So increased summer drought. So that will indeed affect aquifers and wetlands, and the best we can do is plan for that to be more resilient. And then the last one mentioned up there in orange is changes to stream temperatures, stream flow, and inland flooding. It intersects a lot with some of these other ones, particularly the precipitation one. But because of those increased precipitation events, we are expecting possible increased flooding in the winter times and also reduced spring flow and warmer spring temperatures in the summer.
Yeah, I think that one really needs to be finessed a bit more because it's called subsurface conditions, which is a geological hazard. So instead of flooding from just, across the land, right, the runoff, we're actually flooding in the middle of summer during your 2021 heat dome, right? And it's coming up through basements, coming up through pool spaces. So it doesn't matter if there's drought over in Marshall Creek with a loss of in-stream flow. because of the channelization that they caused from the development in my neighborhood, where the water just wants to sit in my house.
Yeah, it sounds like you're.
So I think that inland flooding needs to actually be more fine tuned to subsurface conditions because of the Wanapum, which is the shallow perched aquifer on top of the Grand Ronde. Okay, which is a specific critical aquifer recharge area that Ms. Hughes over here is bringing forth.
I took notes when you were talking earlier. I definitely will finesse that, as you said, and to your point, climate impacts are indeed impacted by past development patterns, past choices.
And non-compliant
services,
yeah, we know.
Well, I was just gonna speak for the class. I'll be, for anybody that wants to talk to me after this, or at any point in time, I'll be handling the critical areas ordinance that's available via and everything for the critical areas, you know, so anything that has to do with those environmental things, like I'll stay here afterwards, I'll stay here. That, yeah, all of that. Natural resources and all of the environmental science and so
Yeah, and Tammy and I will work in concert to make sure the issues are addressed to the best extent and then we'll process here. So yeah, keep raising issues because indeed resiliency touches on a lot of these. So the last way to situate this, Scott already said, a goal of the county, maybe not what it's done historically, but a goal now is to bring these things in a lot of integration. So in terms of climate resilience, you all have raised lots of issues, about climate impacts, raised the need to be resilient and how that should be integrated and not just a standalone effort. And so that visual just shows the various chapters in your comp plan. So transportation, housing, capital facilities, economic development, parks and open space, natural environment, cultural resources, sub-area planning, urban land use, and rural land use. And that resilience issues will be developing separate climate elements, but in an ideal world, they will also be highlighted and reported in those other chapters.
The word aquifer appears in which of those sort of?
Well, in your well, I should defer to your people planners, so I don't know. In which comp plan chapter?
being mostly natural.
Yeah, it's a natural environment, and yeah, these come directly from the current comp plan chapters. So they're saying this, and this aligns with just general guidance, so they're kind of general categories, but aquifer wouldn't be addressed.
I would point out that we're dealing with two aquifers out here.
Yeah.
The Grand Ronde and the, right.
Right, yes. Definitely about that, two things. Yeah.
Well, technically, there's three if you want to pull in the Wanako, which is shallow first off for on top of the Grand Ronde.
Right.
Which does flow,
Try to track down the maps.
which actually does pool up, spring up along the Spokane River, and you can find that in the 2005 Hangman Management Plan. So yeah, they've known about this for a long time.
So yeah, I'm here today to hear lots of your comments on climate impacts and your concerns about resiliency looking to the future, and hopefully integrate that into placemaking. So it's just a brief overview. There's a handout, feel free to grab, and then look on the website. I'll be working with Brent here and the Climate Policy Technical Advisory Committee, so we can be in touch with them.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you.
Okay, we are getting into placemaking, which is really the central theme of this workshop. We're gonna move pretty quickly through this section because we have actually a lot of interactive components for you all that we would like to get to. But we do want to frame things a little bit by thinking about placemaking, which is, you know, maybe it could be a little bit of a broad term, but it's just a comprehensive plan. It touches on land use, transportation, natural environment, economic development, various chapters and circles. But those can be very mechanical kinds of ways of thinking about these different things. And so one of the conceptual frames that I think Scott is really trying to highlight in this process is these are places. County is a place. It's made up of many wonderful, distinct places. And by thinking about those entities and how to strengthen them, how to make more places with an identity, we can have a plan that is more coherent, and we have a better sense of why we're doing the various things that we're doing. I think that's what we're trying to get at here. I should have been on this beautiful slide with all the pictures, but the idea is it's not just the location of the latitude and longitude, but it has meaning. People go there, connect to each other, have stories, history, personal histories. And these are the things that tie Spokane County together. And so we really want to use the comprehensive plan as a tool to make our places better. So what makes a great place? Like I said, it's a place where people can come together. And it's somewhere that's comfortable and has a good image, positive feeling. And for that reason, it's going to attract people. People are drawn to it. And they're going to gather, go visit each other. There's going to be multiple activities happening. Often it's not usually just one thing. If you think about something like a convention center or maybe a downtown where it's all 9 to 5, it's just one thing happens and then everybody leaves and it's done. A really good place is where there's a lot of different things happening, and then you have interactions, and those different kinds of interactions, one is unique, and the more different kinds of things happening, it's like an exponential increase in the variety of activity and value you get. The great places, like we said, social interaction can foster a sense of community, accessible to people of all ages and abilities and local circumstances, place where people can be comfortable, just be human, be themselves, which is a core component of actually being healthy and living a long life, is not being lonely and feeling you have a sense of meaning, and which is enough for many people connected to a place. And these all happen to support a robust environment economy. It's a virtuous cycle. So what does it have to do with comprehensive plan? I already touched on that. But really, we're talking about, a lot of us are talking about land uses and land use planning. And it's very possible, and I think what Scott has really highlighted is that it can be, a planning department can be very oriented around permitting subdivisions, parceling up the land, okay, so many houses, okay, great. Here's our tax revenue. And that's development, and that's important. But you can have something that is more than some of its parts. That is where you are building things, but they're fitting together in a place that can have meaning. So like I said, development can be disorganized. It's not really a legible structure. You don't know why this thing is there and that thing is there. It's just sort of because the developer built it that way. Everything is isolated from each other. You've got your businesses over here, your houses over there. Nothing is connected, and you also have to drive to where you're going.
Some of you may recognize that development, it's along Highway 95 north of Coeur Lane, which I've driven many times, and probably many of you have too. But it doesn't feel really like a place. It's like development.
This was from your side.
No.
Okay, great. Okay, so by contrast, the place, right, this is something that's really important to me, that it has a structure. You sort of, even if you haven't been there before, you can kind of find your way around because things fit together in a way that makes sense in a very human way. You have a variety of building types. You've got housing is there, but it's a component of the community, and along with other kinds of land uses that are mixed together. It's identifiable. It's much harder to get lost there because things have identity. You can remember them, maybe a name or something that's meaningful. And you can drive, but you don't have to drive if you'd rather not. And again, all these pieces are fitting together to be something that's more than something. Again, this is something we're trying to achieve. I think we said this already. Identifiable, different kinds of activities. Incremental change over time is an important thing. Development, often it's like great when it's brand new, and then 20, 30 years later, it's just sort of gotten older and kind of run down. And what a community place and a town that works is something that can be sustained over time. It can gradually get new investment, things can be fixed up, maintain buildings. It doesn't have to be fresh and new, or old and falling apart. It can be continuously growing over time. And again, these places add value to each other. in a land use planning, a county planning context, we wanted to kind of just run through a few, we're calling them components of place, but it's sort of, they're kind of pieces together. And we're here in West Plains today. We're gonna be later on today, we're gonna be in North Mead area. And where there's a workshop also on Wednesday, and these are very important places in the county, but they're not the only areas in the county that we're gonna be planning for. We wanna think about patterns that you see in West Plains that you might also see in other parts of the county. And what are the tools that we use here that are also going to work in other areas? And similar, these are kinds of pieces of community of place that you might fit in different areas. So kind of our part of our toolkit. You've got your traditional Main Street, hard to replicate, but really valuable. Where you've got buildings that come together. Sometimes there's apartments above. You've got good ample sidewalks, places to walk, maybe planners. And on-street parking so people can access those businesses easily. In places, well, yeah, all around the county, not necessarily, where there's some transit services, there's a fair amount of activity. You might have a mixed-use node where you have, again, some apartments, you have service, you have some safe crossings, you have amenities, essential services, groceries, things like that. Leafy neighborhoods, important essential component. Street canopy, really important for resiliency, and also making people feel good about a place, places to walk, bridge streets, so you can go from in this direction or that direction. You don't have to always go just down the one route. That's what a grid of streets gets you. Your rural crossroads in the countryside, or further out of town, where you have maybe you have rural working land, you can still have a coming together place, maybe as a community gathering spot. A church, and maybe it has like a little store, essential services, or a public building. You also got working land that is producing value to people, but also is fulfilling ecological functions, and it has to be a functioning piece of the natural landscape, which is not always an easy interaction, I think, as we've already highlighted in this meeting. And finally, have your industrial centers. I think is an important, very important one here in West Plains. Unfortunately, this is not a photo of out here, but the idea is an area where you can have industrial uses. They are serving their purpose. They're probably not going to be a beautiful building, but they are minimally impactful on the landscape, on their surrounding uses. They're connected the way they need to be, but without obscuring everything else around. Okay, great. Now we're really talking about Spokane County placemaking, and I think this is where I hand it over to Bob, right? I was going to do this one, right? Okay, so yeah, and again, it's a big county, it's a really big county, and we're going to be thinking about what's got cities, hamlets, mountains, rivers, and lakes. It's quite a diversity of landscapes, but we want to be thinking about, the patterns that we may see here that may also reappear in other areas. So more than 500,000 people, big place. We got the 4 focus areas. Today we got West Plains. Later on today, we'll be in the North Metro, and then we'll be talking about both the southeast there by Spokane Valley and Otis Orchards on Wednesday. And Bob's going to talk about West Plains.
Okay. So as you know, there's some challenges out here, and there's some opportunities. Growth is already happening around all 4. You can see there in the blue, basically these are the 4 interchanges between Spokane proper and 4 lakes, the Medical Lakes cut off. So the challenges are, well, you got the airport in the freeway. The freeway represents a physical barrier. You got your noises and fumes. We stayed there last night at the new hotel, and you could really smell the burnt rubber out there. And then you got the noise, and then you got the visual character aspect of all those things. There's, since a lot of this stuff is new, and you got the freeway and all these things, there's, unlike the other places that Ian talked about, there's not quite a there yet, or a place so much. There may be little bits and pieces here and there, but it's still evolving. You got a disconnected street grid. Where do you create a center? You got all these different properties, and some have been developed, some are vacant next door, And so how do we create a place and a neighborhood out of these pieces and components?
Where did you get that delineation at the south end of this map? Because that is exactly the delineation for the West Plains high-risk drainage area that isn't in any of the Spokane County comp plans. And that's going back to 2003, because that was actually done by a study by URS, a geologist, Caldwell, and a hydrologist, Brown, who came out and did this. And that's the high-risk drainage area map. It's just not bright orange. Huh, where'd you guys get that map from?
That's, so the yellow area there is the urban growth area. And then, yeah, and.
Yeah, that's the high-risk drainage area is your urban growth area. By the way, the majority of the soil, where do you create a place or center when key sites spoken for? Well, by the way, 2005 Storm Water Comprehensive Plan states in it that the majority of the well-draining soils in Spokane have already been built on. And that was in 2005. So all the well-draining soils in Spokane have already been taken and spoken for. So you guys might want to think about where you allow that UGA in a high-risk drainage area, because as you can see back there in your environmental map, you guys just built right over wetlands.
Okay, that'll be, sure, we'll be looking into that. Wildfire risk was the other obvious one that we talked about. So zooming in a little more closer, there are some opportunities. You want to build on the existing nuclei that you have on the site. You want to leverage, you got a lot of job growth out here. So how do we leverage that? We saw a lot of the activity out there last night. And so smart planning on some of the currently open land, you can take advantage of some of these and get connectivity, things like trails. There was a comment?
A question, is the brown shaded area the focus of the comprehensive plan? And
the comp plan will be dealing with everything. This is just identifying, as Ian said, where the current urban growth area is located.
And you're aware that the area from Airway Heights North and the Airway Heights South, the area that's not shaded to the top third of your map, is where all the development is happening now. So I'm just hoping that you're intending to really acknowledge that, and that the West Plains is actually 130 square mile formation. So this narrow corridor you're focusing on is a very minute portion of what we understand as the West Plains.
Yeah.
Your consultants, maybe some of you live here, maybe some of you should come live here. But we'll want to see a more expansive, extensive acknowledgement of what the West Plains actually is.
And let me jump back in, because that's why we're here. We're taking a plan, as I said, was done in 2001, last updated in 2016, that is out of date. It doesn't address many of the things that this group is concerned about. We're going through this process to put those on the table as constraints, as opportunities, as things that have to be looked at for any future growth and development. We are also working, the county, of course, is responsible for the urban growth area. That's a GMA required function. But also, as was mentioned before, the rural lands, the conservation lands, and all of that is in our portfolio. We are also working with our cities and towns. Notably, of course, the city of Spokane, but Medical Lake, Cheney, Deer Park, to help them understand the county's broader role, but also to support them as they go through their own planning efforts as well. And while it's not part of today's discussion, the 5 small towns on the Palouse, those are great places. We want them to stay vibrant. We want to be able to give them county support so that they don't shrink. All of which involve things from environmental to physical to economic and social building. All of those good things will come together. We maybe should have had a different explanation for today's meeting. This is truly about how we define what these places are. Behind that scene are all these elements that talk about the environment, stormwater, capital facilities. all huge priorities for us, but they come kind of after this first step.
Your announcement said that you were here to talk about the West Plains.
Yeah.
Not the Western Plains. And once you start confining and defining what that is, you kind of get stuck. And the fact is, that is a microcosm of what's going on out here and could be perceived as misleading. We want to see the whole thing, the Airway Heights, the whole schmear.
We focused on this because it's chiefly the most visible part of the urban growth area for which the county is responsible.
Not us.
We as the county understand that West Plains itself is a much bigger area. And because the West Plains is generally outside of the urban growth area, it's not going to get this kind of development pressure. And so that's kind of a second layer of discussion with the community. But we've absolutely not discounted, not whatsoever.
You're omitting quite a bit, Mr. Chesney, but let's go on.
I actually have a question. So are we like focusing on those areas that you have circled as places that need to be looked at in terms of placemaking? Is
Quite
that
a bit with this meeting. That's what we have some maps and we're
Well,
gonna do some exercises. But that,
strange places to,
Well, those are the four, we've got the four interchanges circled, because those, just the way development works, that's gonna be where the most intense development activity happens, where there's gonna be the most real estate interest, and it's gonna spread outward from those. So you have to identify those four interchanges.
well, you know, we actually live, we actually deal with those interchanges, right? So the first one, Medical Lake, where there is this kind of development that you're talking about, where they put many subdivisions and some industrial stuff. You know, I could see where that might be a placemaking focus. The Four Lakes exit, I'm not so sure about.
and that's outside of the urban growth area. It's in a rural area, but it's still, it's kind of in the realm here. So
It's under the county is responsible for essential planning and development in those unincorporated areas. The Growth Management Act calls areas like Four Lakes, local areas of more intense rural development, or the acronym is a LAMR. They are part of the Growth Management Act, and in some cases, they are not supported. So when things happen out there, that you oftentimes can't expand or rebuild or put in shops or things. We want to help places like this stay vibrant for generations, so that people who live there, if their children decide to live there or others come back, that those are places to go. So those are part of the county's planning and development responsibility, unlike Cheney, Medical Lake, Airway Heights as municipality. So that's why we focus on them, look at them for this exercise.
and one of the things that we wanted to bring up on this last slide was things like, once you do a subdivision, that these lot lines and the roads, they're kind of forever, and you're stuck with them for a long time. So the idea with a lot of this is to try to get these things right and to make sure that we get a good street grid, that we get things like trails, and because if you don't do them at the beginning, they're just not going to happen. So that's a really important thing to think about right now for these areas, whether or not you want them to grow. But if they do, make sure that they're done in a good way. So I'm just gonna flip through a couple of these aerials just to, this is of the second.
Do you realize though that the majority of the soils that are in this UGA are old prime farmland soils? Some of them are even farmland of statewide importance. In fact, you guys actually built a development on Kite Road, and left out of the sulfur pool that it was farmland of statewide importance. And my house, right in that corner, this curvy road. Yeah, I was actually built on 3060 farmland soil, which is prime farmland if drained. That's how much water is in the basement of those homes. Those are supposed to be wetlands, and they're really important for resiliency because they can sequester anywhere from 81 to 216 tons of GHG, depending on their type. But here in Spokane, where's this water to go? Where is the stormwater facilities? Because in 2005, you guys got a $25 million bond to do this. You've been taking our money. Where is it? Where's the stormwater regional treatment and disposal plant that was supposed to be in the works? I mean, go check my property taxes. Go check the property taxes, you guys. Storm rights principle number one. They've been pinching money from us for a bloody long time, and we've got nothing to show for it. We want our money back. Carry on.
So here you could just see again the pattern of the existing interchanges and roads. With the more rural-like properties with some of the newer development coming in. This is the interchange up near Tiger. And then the last interchange, Garden Springs. Again, you can see new multi-family development. This is already in the urban growth area. And with that, I think we're, well, actually, before I get into that, so what are some realistic tools that we have here to do placemaking in the county? So really, it's a combination of things. So starting with some of this visioning process, coordinating with the property owners, working on plans, goals, and policies in your comprehensive plan, looking at the strategic land uses and designations, zoning districts. But the other thing is civic leadership and investment being a big part of the community. You can't just have development. At some point you need schools and those types of features. Block frontage standards and framework that deals with how your development orients and where you might have the neighborhood center and commercial uses. Again, things like connectivity policies and requirements, absolutely critical at this stage. And then you want to incentivize the development that you want and generally prohibit the bad stuff that's really bad. And find the right mix of predictability and flexibility when you set it up at the end of the day, development regulations. So with that, we wanted to start getting into the engagement of this exercise. And
you know, we've got an hour left, and I wonder if we don't skip right to the tables.
well, we gotta do the visual preference.
Okay.
I think we should just, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So we can get through that pretty quickly. I think this.
Sure, yeah. Okay, yes, so yeah, this is, so we have a interactive component here that involves using smartphones. And if you don't have a smartphone, there actually you can with an older phone you can text into it anyhow.
Or you can write on your agenda or
write on your
sheet paper.
Right under as well. But we'd like to ask you about the must-haves or needs for new development. What is essential to include when new development happens, because new development will happen in the West Plains. Desired attributes, so like not an essential, but like a nice thing that we would like. Outcomes that must be avoided. And then finally, what should stay the same, what should change. The first three are going to do a word cloud, so like a 1 or a 2 word response is going to work best. If you write a whole sentence, the word it's going to be kind of distributed. And then the last one is a full response. It'll just all pop up on screen altogether. So with that, you can to do the poll. Here is you get your camera app out on your phone. If you're going to do it with a smartphone, again, it's okay to write things down on paper. You point at that, and it should pop up. And it might not be on the right question right away, but once I go to the next slide, it will be. Once you have I still want this 2 people not putting close to the screen, I'll go to the next one. Great. Okay, so we want to do a test question first, just so we're on and so you see what is your zip code, just so we can get us. I don't know if it goes here, but folks that do can get a sense of where people live. Great, 9904. Vote. Oh, we have folks online too. We have maybe 10 participants online as well, so they're participating. And we'll see their responses on screen along with you guys. So thank you all the online folks for joining. Okay, similar question here, is if you can click on the map, and you already accepted this question was preloaded probably when people brought it up. So if you want to click on the map, and sorry if I cut off the rest of the West Plains, that's my bad.
Yep.
That's about it.
Are we supposed to tap on where we live?
Where you live, yeah, sorry.
Sorry. I live off the map. I go down to.
Okay, well,
No, where is
a good spread. I suspect we're getting a few people from online or from the other, more the north. Okay, so now back to those questions that we talked on, the must-haves, the essential components, sorry that the text is so. The essential components for new development, yes, turn back.
I still don't understand the map. Are you talking about the urban growth area that you call the core? Because I don't call that the core. So these questions are geographically based for a geography that's still not very clear.
Okay, so to some extent, it's like a lot of these levels, right? We're talking about the whole county. We're talking about development in the whole county, but development doesn't happen everywhere in the whole county at the same level. It's much more likely to happen in the urban growth area. Those are the areas where the zoning, the regulations, the infrastructure, hopefully, if not necessarily, but ideally, the infrastructure is all there so that the development that happens is mostly, I don't know, 3/4, more than half, at least happening in the more concentrated areas. So to some extent, this is going to be true of everywhere, and that's fine. You can write about anywhere, but to a much greater extent, when new development happens, it's going to be in those yellow highlighted areas. The core is a term we made up because we had a super zoomed out version of West Plains, the whole West Plains, but it was hard to see very much. So we said, okay, we're going to zoom into the core. And apologies, but that's why we've been showing those maps in the smaller area. We call it core. Yes.
I have to call attention not only to the misleading geography that you're displaying, but also I think you don't understand your audience. We live out here.
This is why we're here today, ma'am. So we are learning about it.
And get to our issues here on the West Plains.
And this is a 2026 comprehensive plan update. So it's just barely 2025. There's gonna be many more meetings. And this is kind of the whole purpose of doing this, is that have you here and here.
But I see the direction that this is headed is you've already got a skew. And there are many more consultants than there are residents. And that is extremely disturbing. And you don't exactly know what you've got. You've got a tiger by a tail, and there are many tails out here. Acknowledge that. Acknowledge that you don't know where you are or what you're really addressing.
Today's effort is one part of a very complicated set of interactions and events we will have with the public. Yes, we're here to gather any information you wish to share with us. Whether it has relevance to today's agenda doesn't matter to me. It's important that we get that information from you, that we can consider that as we move forward. Today's sessions, though, are truly focused on the urban growth area because and especially on the West Plains, as many of you have noted, as the county in the past has entertained plan amendments and zoning changes on the West Plains, they've not been very well coordinated, and that's led to a lot of issues that are going to be hard and potentially expensive to fix. What we're trying to do here is say, how do we decide more, how to prevent those going forward? And that gives us also an idea of what is in fact still broken that we have to go back and deal with. So it's admittedly, it's looking at the urban growth areas, trying to create plan and rules for better development that is different from what has happened out here in the last 20 years. We can't fix everything in the past. but we are aware of it. And those things that we have the ability to work on, we will. But like I said, we value every criticism you have today and comments. And yes, there may be a disconnect between expectations and what we were putting forward today. And like I said, we will come back in a future effort and talk about some of the more detailed things. This was directed though at how do you build places better than we've done them in the past. And it is truly focused on the urban growth areas for today.
And I might add, we have about 50 minutes left. We have a lot of folks here participating or trying to participate. If we can try to get through some of these activities, then we can, the more information that we can get back would be great. So I think we can kind of respect everybody's time. Ian's going to try to run through, finish this exercise.
We've got the question on the screen now is the outcomes that are important to avoid with new development. Congestion. In the top, what it looks like. Oh boy, okay. Straining the pipes of the internet here. Excellent. Okay, thanks everybody. All right, and so the last one is not a word cloud. It's just what should stay as it is, period, and what should change. And so the responses, I think, hopefully, the screen is so high resolution that it like makes the text very small. I'm sorry about that. So hopefully it'll be big enough that we can read it. These newfangled tools don't always work perfectly. So again, what should change? What should stay the same? I'll read them out. In case folks can't see. From the bottom, that's the first one. Rural field should stay as is, I think. The good should stay as is, the bad. Okay. Need more transparency. Don't grow. Simpler processes. What should stay is industrial job opportunities. Sense of community, healthy growth. Okay, so sense of community should remain in the midst of healthy growth. Enforcement of code. Don't know if that should stay or change, but I think it's something we would want in either case. Change. Okay, so infrastructure to support change, or something that should change would be infrastructure to support growth. Continue to protect Fairchild mission from encroachment. We want growth, but do not want change. Winky face. I think that's a joke. Put up sound barriers. And finally, Spokane's inability to mitigate flooding needs to change. Well put. Okay. That's the last of these open-ended ones. Now we have a visual preference survey. And this is sure.
I can start.
Please.
So with this, again, we assume that there's gonna be more, there's gonna be growth. We want it, whether you want it to or not, it's already happening. In these 4 interchange areas that we've been talking about. And in the future, we're gonna look at some images. And so we want you to say, well, would these be good examples? Kind of neutral, or would they be bad examples? So sometimes these things can really help us a lot in figuring out get the temperature of the room or the temperature of the community on what folks like and don't like. So we've got 2 different parts of this. One of them is more of development patterns. It shows aerial photos of places and developments. And the other one has more of street level views of buildings and developments. So we'll rate these from 1 to 5, 1 being bad and the worst, and 5 being the best. We'd love to see it. 3 is kind of neutral. Maybe there's some good and bad, or don't take it or leave it. And Ian, did you want to clarify, or I guess?
Just a second chance in case anyone wants to stand or thing again, it's the same, but this will be the same, whatever, if you already had it going, keep going.
Okay, so this is the first.
You can just skip ahead to the full page, and this is just so it activates. Great, yeah.
Okay, so this is the first example. It's just a residential subdivision. And you can see the development pattern with the roads. And in the yellow, there's a bunch of cul-de-sacs. Around the edge, you can see that there's some edges and the roads don't, in some cases, do continue, in some cases, don't continue onto the adjacent property.
Egress issues, lack of walkability. I mean,
Yeah, those types of things, so.
This is the crapshoot.
So again, 1 through 5, 5 being your high score, 1 being the lowest score. Okay, here we go. So we already have some results. So there's sort of a mixture, 40% bad, but there's votes all over the map here.
If you can't see, 1 is at the top and 5 is at the bottom.
Okay, I'm gonna keep going for time's sake. I'm gonna keep going here. So this one, calling trail oriented development. So you can see here, it's got a street grid. But then it's got quite a few trails and a park and a little pond and like a community center. There's some alleys and actually a mixture of housing types.
Is there a grocery store anywhere on this one?
Nope, not visible on the actual photo. It's in a growing part of a western town. I'll just say that. And I actually stayed there for a couple days. And one of the there's some accessory dwelling units on the alleys and on a lot of streets. So I'm going to click ahead again, and so 55% gave it a 5 and 25% gave it a 4. That's understandable. I think it's a pretty well planned. It's in Bozeman, Montana. Now this we call streetcar suburb. It's actually in Spokane, isn't it? So this is kind of the traditional neighborhood. You can see on the left there is your commercial corridor with storefronts, and in the red indicates businesses. And then you can see the street grid and there's a park. Oh, I should have clicked ahead to bigger pictures. Here you can see a little bit bigger.
Does this also infer mass transit?
You could infer it.
Well, what does it include mass transit?
So this streetcar suburb, yes, is a type of development pattern that was built around streetcars around the turn of the century. So and then so it is a pattern that is supportive. You know, it's like conducive to transit.
Yes.
It'd be a great place to run transit, but we're talking about the buildings mostly in the streets today.
Today, STA runs a high frequency bus through Upland.
Yeah, right. Good point.
Very good.
Yes, where there was a streetcar, there is now a high frequency bus.
So the scores are mostly 3 and 4 and a couple 5s. And keep going here. So this one we're calling separated densities. You can see kind of a mixture of different housing types here. In sort of the orangish colors are some apartments. And then the yellow on the far right is more single family, and there's looks like there's some duplexes in places, but there's a lot of barriers. And the roads don't really connect. There's a question mark up there. It's actually zone commercial on that site, but you'd have to walk a long way from the residential area to get to that site if and when it's developed. So you got a mix of 1, 2s, 3s, and 4s. Okay. This one we're calling integrated housing and open space. It's kind of similar to a couple other ones, but, it's got a few more little, centralized parks. The numbers with circles illustrate how many units are in some of the buildings, so it mixes, triplexes, fourplexes, and townhouses with the single family development. So there's a little more, it's more than just a single family subdivision. Question?
Yeah, more of a statement. So far, what I have seen does not have what I would consider to be a trail-oriented, integrated community in which the trails connect neighborhoods, go between houses, and get to commercial or business and transportation corridors by walking on trails other than on the street and a sidewalk alongside the street. I don't know whether that's somewhere in your planning. That's a kind of community that I've experienced other places that I haven't seen so far.
Good point, good point. Just trying to find a variety of images and just giving people's thoughts. But I'd like to see some of those examples you're talking.
Have to do what others have done. Why can't we just see how the land moves, site specific, work with it, know what kind of land you're dealing with? Why do you have to have everything so perfectly squared up all the time? Life doesn't happen like that. Geohazards don't happen like that. Wetlands don't happen like that. I think it's really important that as you guys do move forward, you take all of these natural concerns and then make sure you protect them. That way that it is viable for our economic development element of the comprehensive plan, because how this is being done is really counterproductive. And I think that you guys are in a very unique position to be able to think outside of the box and don't go to somebody else's bad planning.
Thank you.
Do your own right thing. Look at the land.
Here's another master plan community example with sort of a small neighborhood main street. Then you can see it transitions to mixture housing, then with a park in the middle and radiating streets from there.
It reminds me of Labs Initiative in Portland, but I think it's newer, but it was the Labs Initiative.
It's actually in Bend, Oregon, so it's in the same state.
Maybe it's there.
Some interesting stuff happening there. But here you can see there's more of the street grid and some of the different use breakdown. Okay, so some 2s and some 4s, interesting. All right, so this one calling mixed growth along the freeway. So you can see the freeway and the interchanges. It kind of probably reminds you of some of these 4 interchanges. It's a West Plains type of place in another western city. But you can see the street grid, roundabouts, some of the streetscape features, and the residential areas. Mixed in, and some parks. The residential area has some alleys and parks. There's a railroad at the bottom here. Here we got 44% bad, some 2s, 3s, and 4s. Okay, and then here we got commercial pad development up along the freeway. Load up and see the bigger version.
You can't do that here due to the imperviousness of the soils already. Just, yeah. Right.
Didn't help much.
Gosh, I would not have guessed.
There's it's a little misleading because it's faded out, so there is a little bit of greenery up on the street fronts there, but not a lot going on behind it.
Do you have any idea how in that development they handle their stormwater drainage?
That's a very good question. Very good question. It's in Montana. It was done 30 years ago.
So it didn't.
I don't know. Okay, so neutral.
Folks, 9,000 acres between Spokane International Airport and Fairchild Air Force Base, which also includes 300 acres of wetlands.
I'm gonna keep going while we're
Yeah,
talking here.
just so you know what you're getting into here on the West Plains.
Okay, this interesting place called American Center, Wisconsin, here in Madison. Again, they're near an interchange with a mixed, looks like more of a master plan and arrangement of roads, and there's a mixture of office and multifamily in orange and some commercial in red. Curvilinear roads. You can see some trails mixed in there. Some green space. And a lot of parking. So a mixture of 1, 2, 3s and mostly 4s. Okay, and this one is bound crossing, right?
Bound crossing.
So this is, here's an example where we've got a short little neighborhood main street between 2 arterials. And I think this one explains a little bit. So you can see the red there are some storefront buildings and commercial buildings. Then you got some multifamily and small single family and some civic uses off to the side. But the core part is creating a little bit of a mini Main Street in this image. This is in Boise, Idaho. Okay, mostly 3, 4s, and 5s. And then this one's a little bit different. This is more of a rural center example, where you got a cluster of buildings around a green with some parking around it. And some of these buildings have multiple businesses and internal corridors on them, but you can kind of see the overall pattern with the photo and the aerial there. So this is more of kind of a rural center, rural cluster kind of a setup. All right, 3s, 4s, and 5s. That's in Camino Island. I stumbled on it last summer. Really impressed. Okay, now we're switching over to photographs, ground level development. So we got multifamily apartment, walk-up apartment complex with some landscaping.
We saw when we were going through the aerial images, this, you might see built kind of even, well, yeah, even in areas that are greenfield, in parts of Wood Lake, near the freeway. They have been built.
Okay, 1 through 5 here with half of them right down the middle. Okay. And another example, I probably don't really need to say much about this, but other than it's a growing community east of the Cascades.
Almost not.
All right, 1, 2, 1, 2s, and 3s. That's in Ellensburg. And then we've got some townhomes in this example on a street with some angled parking, and there's some little commercial businesses, or maybe some of these might be what they call live work units, where you can have a shop on the ground floor and live in the townhouse unit on the upper floors. Or you could just, it could just be a home. Many of them end up just being homes, but they're potentially useful for live work setups. Okay, 3s, 4s, and 5s. And here we have some just regular townhomes. It's a little washed out, sorry. So each one of these stacked next to each other. 2 stories, garages in the back somewhere. All right, 2, 3s, and 4s, mostly neutral. 2 5s. Skinny houses with the garages in front. You can see the front doors off to the side, really skinny lots.
Right. Right. So it's okay.
Good. 1 2s and a one or 2 4s. Okay. And here we got a duplex of a craftsman style on a street corner.
That really doesn't give you very much of a concept. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
so
one
it's harder.
building.
It's harder to fill us. But you can see the 2 walk-ups, it's got separate porches.
What it suggests to me, though, is that a duplex designed like that can fit into an older neighborhood, maintain some architectural characteristics.
Mhm. Got a lot of old duplexes in Spokane, somewhat like that.
Yeah, sometimes they're called double houses in historic newspaper recently.
Double houses.
Articulates that feeling of design compatibility.
I'm just more concerned with the fire insurance, having a, no fire break in old homes like that.
Yeah, and some of these duplexes, there could be a main wall, or it could be zigzagged. Or duplexes can be stacked. Now, these are single family, but they're just skinnier lots. This is a little interesting because they're skinny lots, but they've got the sort of stoop on the left of the front door with a porch-like balcony over top of them. And 3 stories, so it's a little different than the earlier garage example. Just been interesting ways that developers are getting more homes on smaller lots everywhere. Okay, now all over the map on that one, not a surprise. Okay, thanks for bearing note. I think there's a couple more here. Another walk-up apartment complex. Right, 1 2s and 3s, mostly 2s. In Ellensburg again. And then a cul-de-sac with some single-family homes. Okay, 1 2s, 3s, and some 4s. Commercial, just a commercial arterial. With some businesses. One, 2, 3s, and 4s. Okay, mostly 1s. Understandable. There are some sidewalks there.
We have no crosswalk.
Yeah, yeah. Near a new commercial building. Yeah. There's a little greenway to the right with some homes over there in the distance. Okay, understandable, 3s, 4s, and 5s. That's in Ridgefield, Washington. It's interesting development. And that's done with the visual preference. Now we don't have a lot of time left, but we have a half an hour. The maps actually, so the maps over here. Yep. So we don't have a lot of time, so we're not gonna get through everything, but we do wanna, we only have a few people per table. So we might be able to get some things on the map, but let me just run through this really quick. So this is intended to be a collaborative exercise between folks at the table and like there's only 2 of you here. You could either just stay here or you could join another group. Or if people don't want to do this, that's fine. But the more information we get back from folks here, I think the more useful it will be. What we're really trying to get better kind of boots on the ground perception from you of this area. And get your temperature on what your thoughts on things are currently and what you want them to be in the future. So here's just a visual of the exercise. And then what we're going to do is we're going to assess the current context and we're going to write green stars for things that you like about these areas right now. And then we're going to do a red X for bad examples that you don't want to see happen, and exclamation points for issues to point out. And then we're going to use right where you want new streets, new roads to connect, or trails in green. And then use a black pen just to any notes that you want to say, indicate what issues are or things that you want. And then lastly, we've got some image types. If you want to, we've got a number of these image types similar to the visual preference survey they went through. And if you see examples of developments and uses that you like, you can cut them out and paste them on the maps. So what we'll do is we'll give 15 to 20 minutes and see where we end up. So we got residential use types, we got commercial use types, and then we've got civic parks and public amenities. So, have fun, be polite, mark up the maps, and speak up and listen to. So with that, at the end of it, we'll try to compare notes and see what everybody puts together. So with that. Yeah, good. There.
Yeah. Yeah, these are all the great things. They're all
Area where the developers are going to be. Well, I didn't.
Okay, yeah, and it has the coffee stand right there too,
Other than, that. Similar, we're kind of waiting for it's more developed. I mean, the more developed. Still. Downtown. Some people think it's going to the thing where it's in the high school down here. Yeah. Area. Development area. Yeah.
Hello, Scott's gonna interrupt. We have in fact reached our 2 o'clock hour, and we want to be respectful to all of your time. If you have some time, a little bit more, and want to add some more to the map, do that. We will take those back and produce summaries of that material for our follow-up session, which we expect to be in 5 or 6 weeks. And if you signed up, we'll notify you, and we'll also publicize it in a different way. So anyway, thank you for coming here. We appreciate all of your comments. It's all good information that we will take into account. And especially the work you've done to put your thoughts down on those maps. That'll be something that we'll share with our planning commission and our planning groups as we go forward. Thank you, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Thank you. Appreciate what you're doing. Excuse me, what was the meeting that you were mentioning on the 24th?
That's the Board of County Commissioners. We will be having a discussion with them about the comprehensive plan and where we are in the cycle. It's their regular 9 o'clock Monday meeting time, not Tuesday. On Mondays, they have what they call their strategic planning meetings where we can take more time. When we brief them on Tuesdays, it's usually like 10 or 15 minutes because they have 30 things to go through. But that'll be the 24th at 9 a.m. We're close to it. Of course.
It's in the courthouse. It's almost certainly gonna be easier to participate on Zoom. They generally hold these in their conference room, which only holds a handful more people. So,
Okay.
To be fair, I learned about this last night, did not even see the, didn't see the post, it was a Facebook post or something, but, my neighborhood council, we have an executive meeting, and somebody said, you said, they have somebody tomorrow, and I was free, and so, yeah. I reread it after you kind of got, and I think it was pretty clear what you were doing, but I think people want to hear it. Which is, I'm gonna come and give you input on how to fix the neighborhood versus we're gonna tell you to do it. That's what it's, I mean, I did read it. Well, that was my take. On by
Nobody's gonna get that. You're always gonna get that.
Yes, exactly. And which is pretty critical. Because if people are gonna be that much I can tell you. It's been a terrible, miserable.
and, specific thing.
Well, we're really interested in the city council.
What's planned for 10 years.
Well, yeah, and that's why the fake Cheney is so ugly.
Well, and you know, I grew up here when I was the Bay Area, went to college here. And my husband, who is from the East Coast, lived in the Bay Area for 3 years. I forced him to move back here because I always wanted to know. He just doesn't love it. And part of it is he looks around and he's like, who planned or didn't plan this? He feels like it is such a area, and it disturbs him because he's like, so he's sort of like, especially in California. And I grew up in the charm. I look past it. We have to drive through the ash and maple going north south all the time, and I moved to that part of the city, and I'm tired of moving. And it was very.
That, I think division is worse than ash.
Oh, but yeah, it's, I hate that. It's like driving. That part's all making.
It's a habit.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are